So let's go ahead and get started. We'll do today the setup for the virtual machine, which we need to start with, and then we'll continue on that part. So let's go ahead and get started on that. We'll make a specific replica of the virtual machine that we have. So this is the virtual machine which I have forwarded copies to some of you. I'm in a process of sending it to all of you. So this is what you will be getting as per your download, as well as also the virtual machine VirtualBox Manager installation. So both of these will be available. To open this VirtualBox, we'll just make a copy of this one specifically. Let me make a copy here. Let me do one thing. I'll just copy this VirtualBox, which is on 3 GB. Go up. And I'll paste this particular VirtualBox on your system also. You can give it some time before it just copies this virtual system. Still in the process of doing that. The virtual machine VMbox, that is something software which you can do download directly. Okay, so I think it does copies this one. So when you install it from the shared location, copy it into a specific folder. Let me start the Oracle virtual machine VirtualBox Manager. This is something you can directly find it out. You will have to install the VirtualBox software. These are some previous other ones created. Let's go ahead and import a new one. Sorry, cancel. Just keep the defaults. Click on import. Start to on this particular part. There is no as such permission that needs to be given, guys. You will have to click on the right side of the shared link, which I've sent to some of you, and I'll be sending the rest of the people. And just you have to download the VirtualBox. There is no specific right that needs to be given. Let it import the virtual disk. So on your system, depending upon the type of configuration that you have, it will take this time. We are doing it from scratch, assuming that you will have the details available there. Okay. Okay, so let's try to start the same. This is something which we plugged it with. So once you start, this is how it will boot up. It's a Red Hat OS installed on this particular virtual machine, and the typical configuration that you will have is a simple Java installation as well as SSH installation, and taking that as a base, we'll just install all other components. Okay, so we'll go ahead and log in into this system. So if you just scroll it down, because initially when you'll see it, you might see this blank. So just scroll it down, then you will have that thing. Login as Oracle, and I think it is welcome one, all small. Yeah. So welcome one, W small, and numeric 1. So when it starts, this is what will be the default configuration that it will show. Open a terminal just to verify the softwares that you have installed on it. Excuse me. You can see the Java 1.6.029 is already installed on it, as well as also SSH to your localhost. You should be able to do that. And wherever it is asking, it is small, it's welcome one as the password itself. So these two things should be up and running if everything has gone good on your system. For those of you who are creating their own virtual machines, make sure that you do install Java 1.6 as well as have SSH configured. In our case, it's in the form of, or still has welcome1 as the password, but try to configure it in a passwordless manner so that later on when you have Hadoop processes starting, you don't have to key in all every time the passwords. It will start without asking for that one. But these are the two key components that you need to have up and running on this one. So this was about downloading the virtual machine and having it configured, or just configuring it in the VirtualBox manager, opening it and verifying the key installations of software that it has. At this point, this particular system is up and ready for installing Hadoop and making other process changes and all. You will install Hadoop as root user, but those of you who want to create it as a separate user, create a separate Hadoop user or whatever user under which you want to install that one. We'll try to use root as a standard one. And if you'll see here that if I switch to root, password being the same, I don't have the Java version thing. So for root it's not there. So that's something which you will configure for whatever the user that you plan to install or under which you want to configure Hadoop. Make sure that you have Java running for that one. When we start Hadoop installation, we'll do this configuration and make sure that this particular configuration works there. So yeah, to know the OS version, you can just simply have the uname. There are many other ways, like going into the etc ipconfig file, or uname will simply give you, it's a GNU Linux for a 32-bit VirtualBox. That is what it is available, as well as if you do ifconfig, it will give you the IP address. This is what will be the IP address, the inet header. This is the IP address which your VirtualBox has allocated to this particular machine itself. So the simple command line thing itself. Right now you will see that it's a standard Linux directory, nothing has been available here. If you do to root, well, as simple thing is that we will be installing Hadoop under home. Go into recl, it's blank. When we install Hadoop, we'll create our directories, download the stuff there, and then we'll move on. But this, at least this level of things should be ready. As I mentioned, Java should be installed under whatever user you want to do the configuration, as well as also your SSH. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about these individual configurations files. So Hadoop in its core is a simple binary file or a zip format of executables that will come in, and inside that there are certain important directories that we need to remember in terms of configuration properties. There are about 300 to 400 different properties which you can set, and that is how much configurable Hadoop is. But some of the key things that you will be primarily dealing with is these important directories. To start with is your log directory. That's a common concern, to monitor the logs that your key processes has. So right now it's your HDFS system, so we know that name node and data node will be writing to their individual logs because they run in a master and a slave configuration. So to monitor their log, you will typically find it in the logs directory. You will see that when we download the Hadoop binary, there will be a log file at the same level, logs folder at the same level. We have the lib as well as the bin, and inside that you will be able to see all the log files. There will be typically 4 log files which will be written specific to the 4 processes that runs your name node and data node for HDFS, as well as also your job tracker and task tracker for your MapReduce framework. As part of the installation, we'll configure Hadoop temp directory. This is a temporary location which the MapReduce as well as HDFS systems uses, the name node uses for any intermediate file storage and all. And that is at an individual user level. So we'll be specifying this in the individual XML files that we will see later on. DFS name dir, this is the location wherein your name node stores the metadata. That's something which we'll be seeing. Remember, we talked about the edit image, the FS image as well as the edit log files. This is the place, the temporary directory /dfs/name. You will be able to find their binary copies of where it is storing. Parallel to the name node, you will also have the data stored for each of the data nodes. Since ours will be a quasi clustered one, which is like on one system only, we have all the 4 processes running. You will see that there will be a directory specific to data node as well, wherein the data nodes will be storing all their block information. So anything starting with DFS corresponds to your HDFS related thing, which is your name node and the data node parts. MapRed, anything which starts is your MapReduce framework related directories that we have. So that also we'll be seeing, because MapReduce framework, when you submit a job, stores directories and intermediate files. These are all configured in different files. We'll see in a while what all files you need to configure these individual properties. Take a look at the corresponding files that we have. So in your conf directory, that will be the key part when you install Hadoop. There will be a configuration directory wherein you will have the default.xml. That particular XML contains the default settings which you can later on override in the individual files to come, and we'll see in a while what are those files. But this is the file which has all the defaults configured. To start with, you have the Hadoop env file, or the script. Actually, it's not an XML, the script. The key information this script stores is your first, the location of the Java home. Please remember that Hadoop as such has been written entirely in Java, so it requires the location of your JVM installed or the JDK installed on that system, because at runtime when you start Hadoop, it tries to run the processes as individual JVMs or Java processes, and for that it will require the Java home to be set up. That's a standard Java requirement for running anything under Java or using the JDK. So you will have to export this thing, and we'll see. These are all things which we'll be doing as part of the installation, but that's an important thing. This is the bare minimum thing which you will have to do. So if you want to have the fastest possible install, this is the bare minimum you still have to do. At least just configure the Java home, and after that, even if you keep all the files blank, you will still be able to start Hadoop, because all of that comes with the default settings. To configure individual log directories, and this time remember we are talking about the log directory for the daemon processes. The 5 important processes that we have: your name node, data node, secondary name node, job tracker, and task tracker. Even if you don't specify, as we mentioned, that they all will be automatically created in the Hadoop temp dir wherever you have specified. So this is an important one. By default it is taken into the whatever is the username, but you can configure the same. The only thing which is a must is this thing, configuring the Java home in the env.sh file, and all of these are in conf directory. So Hadoop log directory is something which it will create and can configure. To go more details, when you are doing optimization and you want to allocate individual memories to individual processes so as to optimize the behavior, you will have to specify the heap size, and those who are into Java know this concept. Heap is a logical memory block which is used in Java to allocate runtime memory to any objects that are needed. So since all these processes, they run as individual Java process, they need individual memory to run. That is what is the heap size. The default, if you don't specify, is 1000 MB, but depending upon your capacity and the type of performance that you need, you will configure it. 1 GB is at least the starting up which Hadoop does, but if you have a low volume, you can bring it down. The more memory that you will provide to your processes, the better will be the behavior. Now this is for a overall memory perspective, that how much you want to allocate. If you want to configure individual memories for your individual processes, and these are your daemon processes, you can see name node, data node, secondary name node, job tracker, and task tracker. So these 5 basic processes which comprise a Hadoop cluster, you can configure individual memories by using the Hadoop underscore, the name of the process, and opts setting. And not only you can configure, so this is a typical example wherein hyphen in the XX one, you can just put like hyphen 512 MB, and you are also telling here that you want the parallel garbage collection algorithm to be used, not the permgen or the clustered one. We did talk about that in Java. There is a process of memory management. This is a place wherein you can specify which algorithm or what type of strategy to use to do that algorithm or do the garbage collection of the objects which are no longer used. And these are all in your env.sh file. So not only you can specify a maximum memory for the overall Hadoop system, but at individual process level also you can configure the same. When we will open this file as part of our installation, we will see some of these parameters, but be prepared for it. At least you will get a good level of idea that these are the files to touch, because going around 600-700 settings, neither you are going to remember, not all of them are equally significant unless until you have a specific troubleshooting to do, and that all documentation is available on Hadoop site and all. These are some key things which almost are always used in terms of installation, as well as also for doing local optimization of your clusters. So remember your log file directory, memory allocation, and at individual process level. As we go forward later on, we will see that how you can do it at individual. Later on you will see that map processes will come and reduce processes will come, which is what describes the analytics part of Hadoop. And that's where we'll see that how you can allocate memory to those processes apart from these daemon processes. So these are master processes, but you will get later on the flexibility to specify memory at individual map process as well as reduce process level. That all will come later. Remember, this file is important, and all these files which you are talking is in the conf directory. So that's a configuration directory which comes as part of your Hadoop binary. All these files are at that location. hdfn-site.xml. This XML file will contain, as the name suggests, all the settings specific to your HDFS file system. In terms of specifying where you want to store the name nodes, where you want to, when you say name node, it's basically your edit log as well as FS image copy, and also the data node, how or where they should store the block and all on individual systems that they have. If you take a or read the note for the DFS name directory, now many of you ask that name node we know is a single point of failure. So what can be done so as to minimize some of that type of thing? So what you can do at name node level is that you can configure in a way so that that particular FS image and edit log is written at memory or at multiple locations or at multiple mount points. So that's what it said, that you can do comma separated list of directory, and whatever number of comma separated things you will write, that many places the FS image and edit log will be written. It's suggested that when you are doing that comma separated directory things, try to use other or multiple different mount points rather than writing locally multiple places. if you do multiple mount points, maybe some other hard drive or some remote drive mounted, chances are that you will be able to recover it fast itself. This we will see when this hdfs site.xml comes, but a comma separated list of mounted files or mounted file location is a way to make sure that you have multiple copies of your name node and you are able to recover or at least have a running copy in case something fails and you don't have any copy locally to recover from. Okay, so that was, again, there are multiple other low level settings. As we go through, we'll see some of that, but again, as I mentioned, to refer to each and every setting, refer to Hadoop documentation. That's the best place to play around with. These are important things that you should know, and once you know at high level what contains what, smart googling and knowing that parameter will be able to fix any specific considerations. So like your HDFS, you also have for map reduce configurations. So map and reduce things, they are a separate runtime capability, and to do that, or to run it, you have the mapred-site.xml. This is the place wherein you will configure individual settings on that particular part. So you can specify the individual IP address and all where you want to host your processes, because all of these processes will expose a web UI. When we'll do the installation, you will see that you can monitor or you can see your HDFS file system in a visual mode also, opening in a browser, and you can navigate into different directories. The same applies for your MapReduce also. So name node as well as MapReduce framework, HDFS as well as MapReduce, both of them can be accessed by a browser in a UI manner. And that is something which you specify what URL and which port that application will be available. You can specify. So for MapReduce, it will be the job tracker thing here. Now MapReduce framework is an analytic framework which runs your logic. So that also requires certain places where it wants to store intermediate data, system files, and some other low level things. These are some common things or places where, or parameters which you need to configure if you want to specify that location. But as we mentioned, that even if you don't specify any one of these things, MapRed job tracker, MapRed system dir local din, or nothing in MapRed.site, that is still okay. Your Hadoop cluster will still run, because all of the default settings which you override in these files like MapRed site, HDFS site, and your env, these are all there in your hadoop-default.xml. So this file already has a defaults. You use these individual directories and files to override different. Sorry for that interruption. So this is where I was talking that by default your Hadoop-default will anyway have all the settings. You don't normally touch this. When you have to override a specific setting, you configure these individual file, Hadoop env sh, HDFS site XML as well as MapRed XML, and there are lots and lots of different individual settings which you can configure, which will be able to give you even more low level details. So that's something which will help you out when you configure. Now with this much minimum knowledge of some basic file system related things, what to expect, and when you download Hadoop, I think we are good to go ahead and have a installation for Hadoop to be started with. These are some of the important directories that we will see as part of our installation. We will modify these files and we'll try to make the cluster up and running and then we'll check these basic processes, how they are running on those individual systems. Okay, so let's go ahead and first try to configure. If you see here that we don't have Java working for the root user, because right now if you see we are just a minute, I think that's for the root user. If you put Java, that's not something which is available, so we'll try to first configure that itself. We'll just update the bash file. We'll update this file to kept it in update mode. Let's open another terminal. This will be the Oracle user. We know that for Oracle user it's configured. Okay. Bash RC. For Oracle user there are other good amount of details which are configured. Make sure that you copy this JDK 1.629. Many people end up copying the lower thing. There is a 35 also available, so please don't do that. That is a commented one. You can see here that there is a 24 WLS 10235. Don't do the commented one. Or if you are making your own virtual copy, then absolutely, then there is no need for all this. You can directly configure it. I'll just copy these things, locate in this one, and then paste this location. That thing should be sufficient. Okay, so let me save this file. I know that those of you who are networking folks, there are other ways to do that. You can configure it at the user directly level so that any user will have the direct access. I'm just making it selective at root user itself. You just have those users. But yeah, if you go into Linux networking, there are more elegant way to do these things. If you configure it for, if you don't want it to configure for each and every user, modifying the .bash rc file, change your user directory settings and do that particular part. But let's try to do this. So we did modify this particular directory. I'm just using some basic commands. VI is a visual editor that you have in Linux, just similar to your notepad. We use the VI visual editor. Cat is just to take the contents of the file. So now you can see that these things are available. If you try to do a Java version, it will still not show you. You can see that. Let's close this out. Shows you Java not found. So close the terminal, open again, switch to root. Sorry for that. Welcome1 is the password. Now if you do Java-version, it should work for you. So under root user, you are able to run Java. That is the thing, that now root user is configured with that particular access. So that's thing to go ahead with. Now let's go ahead and download Hadoop. So there is an inbuilt browser which is available. You guys have to find some way so as to push your Hadoop binary or download your Hadoop binary and push it on the VirtualBox. If you use the VirtualBox which I have given you, you have this Mozilla already installed. You just have to connect to it and then you have to configure the same. Give it some time before it comes. If your initial mapping has been correct itself, by default it gets the netstat and the other virtual IP related things, and it should be able to give you I was not speaking. I think there was a network thing coming in. So, but you think you should be able to hear it now. Let me know if you guys can hear now. But you should be able to do it now. Let me know if you guys can hear me. At least now. Okay, we'll try. It's just that when it starts the thing, it just takes a good amount of time. But at least take a look at the visuals that are happening. I'm just trying to download Hadoop from the common internet. So let's click on it. Hadoop releases. I just clicked on it. The network is a bit slow, so you can see you have click on download a release now. Now by default it will actually choose a mirror for you, so just whatever the closest depending upon your geography, choose the mirror which comes in, and we will install actually 1.1.1, no alpha. 1.1.1 is a clear one. Once it opens, choose the tar file around 59 MB. That's when there are multiple files, so don't get confused. 59 MB tar.gz file. Click on it. It will ask you to save it to a location. Just save the file and do OK. Let it download to the default location. Later on we'll unzip it and then we'll start the installation.